Welcome to Your Best Life podcast, where we help you discover your calling so you can live with purpose and clarity. We're Pete and Julie Morrill, your guides, mentors, and lifelong adventurers, and we're here to help you find your true north.
Well, hello and welcome back to Your Best Life podcast. I'm Pete Morrill, your host. And today I'm thrilled to introduce a very special guest. His name is Nick Shelton. Nick is the best-selling author, TEDx speaker, and creator of the Reset Button framework, which helps accomplished men rediscover clarity and purpose when success alone doesn't bring fulfillment. He lived an extraordinary life serving in the U.S. Air Force to build a career as a petroleum chemist before walking away from it all at just 49 years of age. That bold step launched a new journey of reinvention where Nick discovered that true calling isn't just about achievement, but about living with presence and meaning. He's also the author of An Introvert's Guide to World Domination and his newest book, Quiet Survival, which equips introverts to thrive in an emotionally intense world. Today we'll be talking with Nick about his path to finding purpose and how the reset button is changing lives and what it really takes to live a fulfilled life and beyond that. Well, welcome, Nick, and thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Could you tell us just a little bit about how you grew up and then maybe what propelled you into the Air Force? What is it, in your early years that kind of led you that direction?
Yes. Well, I grew up in a sleepy suburban town, Littleton, Colorado.
Okay.
And, it was...
I've been there.
All right.
Yeah,
yes.
I was a Colorado resident at one time.
Okay. Yeah, so you're familiar. And, yeah, it was a good upbringing. Both parents still together to this day.
Good.
I have one brother, and everything was fairly normal, but I was like, I want to travel. I want to go and see the world and do some things. And how I got around to the Air Force was I initially said, well, I will not join the military. I will find another way to travel. And so I started applying to work on a cruise ship.
Okay.
And then when that didn't work out, nobody called me back.
Okay.
So I said, well, I will go see some recruiters. And then the Air Force, it turned out, so I was like, well, I want one where they make fun of the Air Force because they're like, oh, the Air Force, you're sitting around, you have air conditioning. I was like, oh, that sounds like something for me. I would like to have air conditioning and good meals.
And not trapped through the mud and have people shooting at you.
You're right.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, well, let's try that. And then that way I could travel. And so that's what got me into that. And I ended up first going to North Carolina, but then I spent most of my time in Japan, which actually let me see some of the world, which that's how that kicked off.
Gotcha. Now, were you doing anything with chemistry or petroleum in the Air Force, or was that?
Yes.
Okay, good. Interesting. So
yes,
tell us what your role was in the Air Force and how that played in civilian life as well.
Is petroleum, oil, and lubrication, otherwise known as fuels.
Okay.
And so anything to do with fuel, so fueling airplanes, fueling the equipment, receiving fuel, transferring fuel, taking care of the tanks that store the fuel,
Gotcha.
Laboratory stuff with fuel, anything to do with fuel, we did it.
Gotcha.
And
then was that qualification enough to transition to your civilian role?
Somewhat. Well, before that, I had interned at an oil refinery.
Okay.
Before that, so I already had a little bit of experience in there, and plus I come from a family that had some oil and gas background as well.
Okay.
And then so, since that's what I knew and was comfortable with when I got out of the Air Force, I was like, well, they called me and said, "Hey, what are you doing? You wanna work?" And so I went into that industry just because it was familiar and comfortable, and I already knew some people that went that way.
Wow. And they recruited you, it sounds like.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, because of your military background and because prior experience, it sounds like.
Yes. Yeah. It helped out a lot, and so that's what got me in there. And then I didn't make a career out of it, which initially I was going to, but then I got too much responsibility, and I said I would like to have less responsibility, and so I just tell them it like it is.
Yeah.
And so I got out and went into oil and gas, and that's where I stayed up until January 2024.
Okay.
And that's when I decided that I was going to. I'm very competitive, and so with my brother's 2 years older, and so I was like, I have to retire before him.
Okay, here we go. Okay.
Yeah, so I ended up retiring. He's still got one more year before he retires, so I won. I won that, and so I don't know how far you want me to get into this before.
Well, let me ask a slightly more framing question. We coach people to look for fulfilling chapters in their lives as hints to what might be their calling.
Yes.
I'm curious, were there chapters in your early years? Were there chapters in the military? Were there chapters in your civilian roles that pointed you to writing books and to helping people with life purpose?
Yes. So there were all the ways. Whenever I had trouble with something, then I'd say, okay, well, how do I find a way past this? So early on with the Introvert's Guide to World Domination book that I ended up writing, I had always been a little shy, socially awkward, and introverted, but I was always put in these situations where it's like, well, if I'm going to make the most of this, if I don't want to miss out, I have to be able to navigate it. And I know a lot of introverted, shy, socially awkward people that would just say, I'm just going to stay at home and not do anything. But I said, I want more.
You wanted the social skills to be appropriate in that environment or that role, is what you're saying.
Yes. Yeah. And so, I also wanted to, meet girls and stuff.
There you go.
So it's like, well, how do I do this?
Okay.
So I tried to find all the resources that were available, but none of that seemed to apply to me, work for me, because they're just like, go into a room and start talking to someone. I'm like, I can't do that. I'm not, I'm not Superman. So I had to figure out by observation, like, what's working, what are people doing, and what are they doing that I would do, not that I could do, but that I would actually do. And let's break it down into the simple steps. So that's another thing that I learned from the military. Is if we use like the example of the making of the bed, everyone knows in basic training the making of the bed, and whether you are a genius or the opposite of a genius, everybody learns how to make the bed the same way because they break it down into simple steps. And so for networking for introverts, I was like, okay, let me figure this out. I was the guinea pig, and then I'd break it down into steps that people could follow. And then the same thing with this latest, biggest challenge was when I retired. I, hit this big wall because I thought, oh, okay, well, I won. I'm just gonna, I guess, hang out on the beach and, learn golf and, but it wasn't that way for me. I kind of got depressed, and because I felt like my identity was tied up into the career, and then when I left there, then it was all of that I had worked to build, it was gone. Yeah. And so it's like I was working with a currency that was no longer accepted.
Right.
And so I had to figure that out. So I said, go ahead.
You talk about freedom without clarity, and it seems like that's kind of what you're talking about here. Everybody wants more freedom, right? But
Yes.
freedom without clarity has kind of an empty feeling to it, is what you're saying, I think.
Oh yes, it can really do you in. I know that some people, it just depends on your personality type.
Sure.
Like, so both of my parents retired early, also, and so my dad said, "I'm doing nothing but golfing and playing tennis," and that worked for him.
That's okay.
Exactly what he did.
Yeah.
And my mom, she has to be active and be like on the social scene. So, she said, well, I need to do something. So she got involved in all kinds of things because she needs that stimulation. And, so for her, it would not have been okay to just hang out somewhere.
Right.
My dad, it worked for him, but my mom, it didn't work for her. And like for me, since I was so used to constantly working and achieving, and I had this drive in me, and then all of a sudden, if you just take that and you just set me on a beach somewhere, the drive is still in there.
Right.
And so I'm like, well,
it becomes
I retired,
unfulfilled pressure at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. I had another dance left in me.
Right.
So
right. Yeah.
I said, I need to figure out what this is, because there was this, I felt like I was fading away, like I was becoming invisible.
Interesting. You talk a lot about being an introvert, and you talk a lot about some of this drive, which, in some ways they seem a little bit contrarian. The introvert you think is going to feel most comfortable in a closet, and the person that's conquering the world is going to be perhaps out there. I can relate to you because I've always been in leadership positions, but I too am an introvert.
Yes.
Why do you think, and we teach people that the second tent peg that you really need to understand, the first one is what were those fulfilling chapters. The second one is what's your personality, and how does your personality play into how you relate to circumstances, people, and that sense of accomplishment. So
Right.
kind of dig into your personality a little bit and tell us how, and I think this is where you're going anyway, tell us how that kind of has created a path for you.
So just so I understand the question, so how my personality
kind
from
of
the past all the way up to...
Right. Yeah. The books that you've written, right, I think are a lot based on your personality.
Yes.
Because the Introvert's Guide tells you about your introversion, and then this reset button, I think, tells you about you want to still have a purpose, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, finding your purpose no matter how lost you might feel right now. So I guess for me, I thrive. I need some kind of like systems. I'm systems based.
Okay. Yep.
So I have to develop some kind of system, and then that helps me organize my day and what I'm going to do and plan out. And one thing that I noticed, so there's phases, and you might relate to this at some point. There's the achievement phase that I was in for so long, and then it switches, but no one tells you. So when I retired, there's the relationship phase of life. So the first part of my life, it was all about my identity was built around my achievements.
Oh, gotcha.
And now it's time to kind of pivot a bit, because I try to think of it as like a warrior on the plains, and then one of the village elders that's in the tent.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so no one tells you about how to like transition to one of the, now you can, be a mentor, and you can help other people, but you can still go out there if they need you on the plains, on the battlefield or something. You can still go out there. You still have it in you, but you're best served now, or serving in this new role as like one of the mentors, or more of a service-based, relationship-based,
a tribal advisor kind of sorts, a mentor.
Yes.
Yeah. I've heard it described as the sage period of a person's life. Yeah, and that's what
Yes.
this reset button is all about, it sounds like. So I'm
Yes.
curious, when you wrote that book, was that after you went through this kind of transformation of now I need to achieve less or focus less on achievement, focus more on relationships and encouraging the next generation? Or was, in other words, were you reflecting back on the steps you took, or did it help you take those steps and then you kind of were applying your own process to your life?
Okay, yeah. So the reset button is not a book. That's just a program that I put together.
Sorry.
But no problem. But how that came about was when I hit that wall, I said, okay, I felt really depressed. I felt the most alone that I've ever felt in my entire life. I wasn't lonely, but I felt alone and invisible, and like I was fading. And so I said, I need to find, just like I did with the introvert thing, I said, I need to somehow find like a system to put in place to get out of this and to find my purpose again and to find a reason for getting out of bed in the morning. And so me hitting that wall and going through that, I said, let me just kind of do an audit. Let me break this down, and I'll document it as I go to try to figure out what's working and what's not. And then at the end, because I said, I can't be the only one that's going through this.
Right.
So if I can figure this out, then I can help other people that might be struggling with it. So it's pretty much starts off with the auditing where you're at, so you know what you're working with. And once you can know like where you are, then you can decide what you want to carry over.
Gotcha.
And because I look at it like there was a video I saw where somebody said, well, maybe in another life I can do this. And I was thinking, well, maybe that other life could start right now.
Right.
We can release the old version of me, and I feel like I was given that first version, but now in this stage of life, maybe I can choose it. So I was thinking, maybe I can decide what I want to be. And so kind of like someone that's writing a movie script or developing a character in one of those role-playing Dungeons and Dragons games. They develop the character. They develop for the movie or for one of the games. And I was like, maybe I can take the parts that I still want and move those over and discard all the stuff that I don't need anymore.
Gotcha.
And I can develop the new me. What do I want to be? How do I want to present into the world? And what new hobbies would I like? What new interests would I like to have? And just develop that and then embody that. And I have a whole framework on how to go through and do that. And we can get into that as much or as little as you'd like.
Yeah, well, I do want to step back because you mentioned the first step is to audit. Well, you know,
Yes.
audit's kind of a negative word in terms of most people's lives because usually it means somebody's going to be staring at your financials. But I'm guessing it means a little bit different. But one, why is the audit so important? And two, give us some practical questions that a person would wrestle with when they're auditing their current situation.
All right, so you would want to. So our audit is more of a positive audit.
Right.
It's just to see where you're at, to see what assets and liabilities, what you're working with, and so. And it can be a broad audit of everything, or it can even be an audit of, say, what you did yesterday. So if we do the what you did yesterday one, we could say, list everything you did, and then you could draw a circle around everything that you were just doing to kill time, just filling time. So after I retired, there's a lot of days where I just say, I'm just going to go to the store and walk around and see what's on sale today.
Okay.
And that's just what I would do. But it's not like my passion or anything. That's just just burning some time.
Right.
And then there would be some things that I would say, ooh, I liked this, I didn't like this. So once we can kind of get eyes on what is just filling time or that is taking energy, and then things that we actually enjoy, then we can say, okay, we can do more of this and try to cut out some of this other stuff
Right.
that isn't serving us. But we need to know the baseline. We need to know where we're at first before we can start deciding we're going to change things. We need to lay it all out on the table and see what we're working with.
So, and I'm even going to think of it like a diet. I know that when you first start trying to change the way that you eat, they sometimes want you to journal exactly what you are eating before you decide to change. And then they're going to help you identify this is a waste of calories and this is helpful calories in terms of what your long-term goals are. It sounds somewhat similar to that. But then you said there's also a more comprehensive audit, and I would guess that that takes in education and skills and abilities and personality and all of that.
Right. Yeah, you're going to want to list out all of your stuff. And I have a little, some things to stimulate the mind on things to write down. But you list out everything that you can possibly think of, and then you will say, okay, this will serve me in the new me, because I reached a point where it was like, I don't know who I am anymore,
right? And
I need to rebuild myself from the ground up. And so if I'm rebuilding myself, then if I'm starting over from scratch, then I can leave out the stuff that I don't want in there anymore.
Correct.
That's not going to be of use in this new era of life. So I can bring in the new stuff, discard the old stuff, and then once we have the full audit, and then we kind of figure out what the positives are, then we can honor and release the old us.
Okay.
And then define the new us, what we actually want to be. But the honoring and releasing, that would be something like, one of the ways that I've done it is like writing a letter to myself that sees me, that says, I recognize all these things you've done, all these good things. I forgive the mistakes that we made, but that's part of the process. Just writing a whole nice letter to honoring my old self, and then once that's written, then it's kind of like a bowl burning ceremony where you put it in a bowl and light it up, and then you kind of release that version of you, and now you start building this new version of you. So then you'll have the prompts to add in all the positive things that you wanted to bring from the old you into the new you, and then listing out all the new characteristics that you would like for this new version of yourself.
How does a person define the new person that they want to be, and how do they keep it real? In other words, maybe I want to be the senator of the beautiful state of California, but keeping it real, I don't have any political contacts. I don't have major money. I live in a very small area. I don't have influence in the political world.
Right.
So how do they envision that new person? How do they keep it real? How do they maybe not shoot too low? That's, there's the risk of shooting too high, and there's also the risk of shooting too low, perhaps.
Right. So, I picture it as, instead of stating which I guess you could, but instead of saying I want to be the senator, you could say I look at it more of characteristics.
More general, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What characteristics do you want to have? This new version of you would have these characteristics. They would, when they are doing conflict resolution, they handle it this way.
Gotcha.
And so it's more of and then, your hobbies. Do they exercise more? What do they do? What do they eat? So it's, instead of just as being like I want to be a professional wrestler or something. It's more of just a characteristic list
Gotcha.
on the
Okay.
type of person. So it's kind of more of the baseline person
Okay.
that we're building. And that still is one of those things that kind of slips. So you still have to. So what we do, once you figure that out, then my challenge to my students is we introduce 3 new environments. So the default, and these can change, these different environments, but the main default is I instruct people, once you figure out, okay, these are my new characteristics, how I want to be, then we release that old you. So like, instead of me saying I used to be, this petroleum chemist, I'm working from this new framework. So in these new social environments, I would recommend people do a dance class, a cooking class, and a language class.
Okay.
And you don't necessarily need to be into those things, but it's just what that does is when you go into those environments, they're fairly intimate. You're meeting people, they're going to ask questions about you, and now you're introducing yourself as this new version of you. And so you're not carrying the old. So now all these people that you're meeting now are getting to know you from this new you. And so you're going to be building connections from this version of you, and you're going to be known in this new environment, these new circles, as this version of you. And that also helps reinforce you actually being that version of you. And so that's one thing that, you're all those new characteristics, you're exercising those in these environments, and then it connects you to more people and more opportunities. And, it doesn't have to be those classes, but that's just a starting point.
Sure. Let me ask this, because you've written The Introvert's Guide to World Domination, which, by the way, I love that title. But as an introvert, are you deciding in the new you, I want to be an extrovert? Because that seems like it might be a little bit contradictory to the way you've been made, or in other words, how do you wrestle with something that's deeply embedded in who you are?
Right. Well, you don't have to. I guess if you decided that you wanted to try to be an extrovert, like when you're doing your audit and you're deciding what type of person you want to be, if that's something that you want to be, then I suppose you write down what would an extrovert do, and then you start emulating those behaviors. And also, in my book, if you had the Introvert's Guide to World Domination, that would also help with things that you can do to help speed up that process. But there are certain things that are fairly deeply anchored within you, and if you're trying to change those, you can. It might make it more challenging than some more light alterations in your base personality.
Right.
Maybe it can be done.
Yeah, maybe you choose to be a socially active person, which doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be an extrovert. It just means you're going to force yourself to not spend all of your time alone, but spend your time socially active. You'll
make sure this version of you actually shows up at events.
Yeah.
You might not be the star of the show there, but you're at least in the room.
Right. Now, you've also written another book. I'm pretty sure it's a book, Quiet Survival. And what's the major message of that book?
That one that came about because my brother had a friend that got diagnosed with terminal cancer, and he said, I don't know how to have a conversation about what do I do when I see them? I don't know what to say.
Right.
And so he said, can you put together something for hard moments? for introverts. And so I said, yeah, we can do that, because I had a lot of other tips, but I said, oh, I never really addressed if there's, you're at a funeral, or if you're even in your workplace, and suddenly they just ask you to step up and say a few words, and you're not the type of person that steps up and says a few words. Okay, what do I do here? So there's all kinds of different scenarios in there that I just wanted to tackle to make it so if an introvert finds themselves in a high stress situation, that there's high stakes, or there's something that they don't know what to do. They want to be there and they want to show up, but they don't really know how to handle it. That's what that was.
Gotcha.
That's what that was for.
Gotcha. Well, Nick, I'm curious on a broader sense. How do you define calling?
Like what your calling is?
Yeah, life purpose. You could use a number of different things, but what would be your definition? And is that something that you're trying to help people find?
Yeah, so I figure, and I don't know if there's just has to be one calling or one purpose, but yeah, I would say it's something that gets you out of bed in the day, that you say, yeah, this is what I'm here to do. And it might not be like your overarching life mission, like you were born to do it. It could be that, but it just has to at least be something that when you open your eyes in the morning, you're like, yeah, okay. If you know you're going to do that, it's not something that you're down about, like, oh, I have to go do X, Y, Z. You're actually looking forward to it, even if it's hard. It's something that you are still looking forward to doing, and you feel like you can add value. You're kind of have a gift at adding value in that area.
There's an internal motivation based on perhaps passion, and based on perhaps how you've impacted people strategically in the past. Would you say that your calling has changed? I'm guessing you would. And if so, how do you navigate that? How would you?
So, well, go ahead.
How would you coach people? Is what I was about to say as well.
Okay, so yeah, my calling definitely changed, because I think I was there was a point where I was just trying to. I don't know if it was how healthy the calling was, but I just wanted to make a bunch of money, and I wanted to meet a bunch of girls.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, that's what I'm here to do.
Okay.
And then I made money, and I met some girls, and now I'm in a serious, committed relationship.
Good for
so
you.
That's all
good.
Done.
Yeah.
And so now it's the interesting thing is, like, for me, I found it most fulfilling these days is what I call be the angel, is what I call it. And it's not really, I wouldn't say it's really religious. It's just one day I was just sitting around and I was thinking, do angels exist? And if they do, how do I know I'm not one? Maybe I'm one. And
I like that.
Because I said, what if I could do miracles? I just can't do them for me, or I could only do it for strangers. And then so I was thinking, one day I was having kind of an off day, and I said, well, I can't really control what day I'm having, but I can absolutely make sure somebody else has an amazing day.
Huh.
And so...
And then all of a sudden your day changes probably as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, you can go out and just do small... Because some people, they just need... maybe just someone to listen to them, and that changes their whole day. Or maybe, like there's a place, I don't know if you have it out there, called Cold Stone Creamery.
We've got them here, yes.
Okay, and I would get these $10 gift cards, and then I would get these like blank thank you cards, and I would say, have a cold one on me, and I would hand those out to random people.
Oh, wow.
And just a little ice cream.
Yeah.
Really, people love ice cream, apparently.
Well, they love a random act of kindness, I think is what that's called. Yeah. Right.
Yes. And so
Interesting.
just little things like that you can do. And so and also waking up in the morning and just like, if I open my eyes and I go, I'm going to make someone's day today. So I don't even have to be having a bad day, but I can say, I'm going to make somebody, I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know yet, but I'm going to go out into the community and I'm going to make somebody's day today. And that is like, so my purpose, I get excited about like, how's that going to unfold?
Yeah.
What's that going to look like? I don't know, but someone is going to have a good day. I'm bringing some good day energy to somebody today.
You're putting your wings on. You're becoming that angel. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
In our coaching, we would say that's your selfless gift. Where is it? Where are you going to find that selfless gift? And sometimes it's going to be very intentional. Perhaps you're a doctor and you're going to go to, a deprived community in a third world country and give them your doctoring skills. But also perhaps you're just going to go down to the retirement home and listen to some people who have some aches and pains and might need a little bit of advice. Yeah, interesting.
It can be really simple, and it could also be complicated. I was telling somebody else that one of the more complicated things, that I'm not suggesting any of your listeners do this, but I was one day I was like, man, I think it'd be cool to be on a yacht. And then so I said, well, let me charter a yacht. So I chartered a yacht, but then, I can't just be there by myself.
Right.
So I got a couple of my friends and I said, let's go to the mall and let's ask people if they want to go on a yacht. And, so people were like, yes, I'll go. And then, I remember thinking, this is the thought that went in my mind. I said, if I had a yacht when I was in high school, my life would have been totally different. I would have been cool and popular. But people really, that's another thing is, instead of just like the ice cream thing, this is a shared experience. So I also like being like, I would like to do this. I bet other people would like this too.
Right.
Let's share this experience.
Yeah.
And they'll always have that memory of, oh yeah, I went out there and Nick brought me out on that thing. And you're meeting new people and you're giving them this experience also. And you're experiencing it together, because I had never been on one.
Sure.
And now I'm having this experience with somebody else who's never been on one. And we get to kind of bond and share that moment.
That's interesting. Now, Nick, you've written a good bit. You spoke some, and it seems like that's the way you process how you're going to coach people, or how you're going to instruct people, or how you're going to give them. And it seems very much based on your own experience. Would you agree with that? And would you agree with it? You're kind of when I write it down, you seem also very analytical in terms of, I want to attack things one step at a time and in a practical way that everybody can understand.
Yes, because since that's how I learn, then I know some other people learn that way. Some people probably don't. But yeah, I when I experience something, I try to observe it, and then I say, okay, well, what worked? Let's kind of streamline this and put this in a system. And that's the same way in the military, that they just would say, here's the procedure. Here's the procedure for this. If you want to do this, here's the procedure. So now I kind of think of that way in my life as well. We're like, okay, here's the procedure for this. And it doesn't always work. So like if you're going on dates or something, you can't be like, this is the procedure for our date.
Step one, say your name.
It doesn't quite work
the
same. So some things have to kind of be guidelines.
Right.
But yes, I have gotten most of everything that I've written, and then my speeches, it's usually, it's always from something that I experienced that I think, okay, this is a good nugget to share. And if there's a big mistake that I'm trying to push people away from, then I'll try to, also share that. But all the little mistakes, I just, let me just streamline all the to-dos. And then if there's any not to-dos that are major enough, I'm trying to think of an example. But then I would share those like in the books as well, or the speeches. But yeah, it's all from experience. I was the guinea pig myself.
Gotcha. What role does faith, values, intuition play in your coaching to help people? It sounds like more men to find their direction. I think you're kind of focusing on men in their retirement years.
Yes.
You had a great. At least what I heard is in your early lives you valued monetary success. It sounds like that's less of a value to you now,
Yes.
but it's also an opportunity, right? Not everybody can rent a yacht and take random people on the yacht, right?
Yes.
So how do you help men navigate through maybe some complicated values that maybe they don't even know are either holding them back or need to be shifted? I think you've done a good job of shifting your values from monetary success to more relational giving is how I would probably describe it. So why don't you comment on that?
Right. Well, the monetary thing, it is important,
Yep,
sure.
right.
And so it's one of those things where once you have it, then you can say, okay, it's not that important, but it is important. But kind of like with when I talked about one of my goals was meeting a bunch of girls. If you're not meeting any girls and you want to, then it's very important. But if you do meet a lot, then you go, okay, it's not that important because you are doing it. But
Right.
For the value shift, it's more of a just being aware and shining a light on it. But it's one of those things where it's hard to convince somebody unless they kind of have a bit of that experience in there. So if somebody does not have any money, then it is difficult to say, hey, you want to focus on these other things that are not money. Because
Right.
no, I can do that after I have some money, thank you.
Yeah.
Or if I say, don't worry about chasing those girls, you should focus over here. Then, yeah, I will figure that out myself. Let me do this first, and then, then I will listen to you. So it just matters kind of where they're at.
Right.
But we can take wherever they are and say, let's lay it all out, kind of like in the audit thing, and let's look at where you're at and then what you've been trying to do and see if any of the things that you are doing or have tried in the past, if any of that was like serving you, if you were getting the positive outcomes that you were looking for, if it was lighting you up and giving you the energy, or if whatever you've been focused on and pursuing has been draining you and leaving you empty and depressed, then if it has, then that's something that we can see if we lay it out and say, okay, you've been trying this, it hasn't been working, and it's been like hollowing you out. Let's maybe look at a different angle or some other way of viewing this. And there was this thing that I heard many years ago, probably 30 years ago, that somebody said, success isn't something to do, it's something to see. And then years, I would think about that every year. I'm like, what? Something to see? And then it's like, oh, maybe it's, okay, a shift of perspective, because there's a lot of things that people have. Like if you do that audit and then you say, wow, you've done all these great things. That person might not be able to see all of the wonderful things that they have around them because they're too focused on this other thing. But if you can show them, hey, you already won. You've done all this stuff that most people never get to do, but you were blind to it because you're focused on this other thing over here. So it's, I guess the answer to the question is, if we can get that a good audit down, then we can actually see, well, what are you working with? What have you done? What do you have? And what have you been trying to do that has not been giving you what you thought that you needed?
It's like Jimmy Stewart in It's a Wonderful Life, or at least his character. Basically, his angel took him through the audit, right? And and told him that he had a lot more than he realized. He just needed to change his focus.
Yes. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a really good reference point.
Yeah.
I never thought about that, but yeah, that's exactly like that.
Nick, what are you most excited about right now, both personally or professionally or in your coaching or maybe something you're writing? What's got your interest right at this moment?
Well, at this moment, it's most of this Be the Angel project sort of thing, where I'm going out and trying to make people's day, and also the coaching, finding other, and yes, my site's called Reset the Man, but there's also women. I can coach women too. The funny thing is that women often are ready to get help and accept help a lot faster than men.
I've noticed that as well. Yeah.
Yes.
They're more coachable for sure. Yeah.
Right. And so, because men a lot of times will be like, I got this, I'll figure it out on my own. And women will be like, hey, if you know the way, let me know. And so it works for both. But yes, I'm really excited just on this because this is fairly recent. Because I'm 51 now. I retired at 49, and it took me a while to go through the stages myself and figure this out. And so after I finally said, ooh, this is what I want to do, this is what really lights me up, and I like helping people and having conversations about this. That's what I'm really excited about now. And then also there's just some new hobbies. I know that everyone is supposed to suddenly take up golf when they retire. I did take the lessons, and it's okay. I'm not super pumped about it, but I can do it. That's also in there too. But I'm really excited about. I started looking at like auctions and things like that.
Oh, there you go.
Man, auctions. So I'm kind of excited about it, investigating more on that.
Interesting.
But mainly like helping people. They hit this wall, especially executives that they're finding themselves after, post-career, trying to figure out what's next. I'm loving helping people find out what's next. And so that's a really big driving force. But then also I tell people, I do this myself, and I tell other people that there's so much, especially really driven people, there's so much that you give up when you're on this journey. So when I was chasing the financial stuff and the women, I gave up a lot of things on the way, a little stuff that I was passionate about. And now that I have more time and I'm not as my focus is more broad, I can remember, well, what did I used to like to do and I can revisit some of those things. And so that's another thing I advise people do. Did you used to write poetry as a kid, or did you there was a time when I wanted to be an inventor, and I would just tinker with all kinds of things to try to make a new product, or cooking. Maybe I didn't have time to cook, but now I can actually go and try a new recipe, or there's just so many different things that I used to really love, but then got pushed to the side, and now I can revisit those. And so that's one of the things that people can do. Another thing also, not to get too in the weeds here, but some people are, once they hit this wall, like I hit a depression, but some people, it really takes them down, and they're getting a really dark place. And so we talked about the audit, but I would say for them, first you can reach out, always, listen to your heart and try to reach out to somebody and tell them, be vulnerable and let them know that you're struggling. But also you can do what I call a dignity scan, which can help you. If someone just needs to make it through the night, do a dignity scan and see, what you have, like what's a skill or strength that you have, and like how do you know what's a piece of wisdom, and like write it down. What do I have? What's a value that I have? Write it down. How do I know I have this? What's a person that cares? Can you list a person that cares, and how do you know? Write that down. A memory. Write down a good memory that reminds you that you're capable, and like a list of vision or desire that you're not ready to give up. Write it down, and this can help get a person from a dark place and kind of. And I'm not a therapist or anything like that.
Sure.
I'm just saying that these have been very helpful for me and other folks that I know. And then also get out into nature, take a walk, take a hot shower, but definitely, if anyone really hits the wall, reach out to somebody. And I know that people think, oh, I'm going to bother them. I don't want to bother them. But when people reach out to me, I've been honored. Even if
Right.
I've been working all day and I'm tired, I'm honored that they reached out to me.
Right.
And I will do whatever I can to step up and hold space for them.
Yeah. And with mental illness and being, it seems like, extremely high right now, I think those are always good words of just some good things that you can do to reset your mental compass a little bit to the value of life, right?
Yes.
If you could give yourself, your younger self, one piece of advice, what would it be?
I'd say keep going forward. It's going to get better.
There you go. Good. Do you think you're living your best life right now?
I think so.
Good.
I actually think I am living my best life. Sure, there could probably be. I haven't been to Italy yet.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Maybe that needs to be added in.
Yeah.
But yes, I think I'm living my best. I'm living my best life, I believe.
Good. Nick, where can people connect with you if they want to learn more about your programs, your books, just want to see more about you? You have a website, I think. Why don't you give people your website address?
Yes, the website is resettheman.com, resettheman.com, and women can go there too. I just needed a catchy domain name, resettheman.com, and then also they can find me on LinkedIn, Nick Shelton, and all my stuff is there, and they can reach out. Anyone can feel free to reach out at any time, and I will help you any way I can.
Great. Do you have a final word of encouragement that you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Yes, I would say do an audit. Do just a light audit on, say, yesterday, and just kind of see where you're at and see if you are drifting or if you are engaging in stuff that is filling you up, or if it's just burning time or depleting you, and just have an awareness of that, and then you can know how you need to start dialing in your days. That's the best thing that I can give someone to get a start in the awareness of where they're at.
Nick, I've appreciated this time. I think it's really healthy to just say that life's problems aren't insurmountable, right? They're just one step at a time in the right direction. Yes. And it sounds like that's kind of a theme that you have is let's simplify both the negative and the positive, and then let's kind of audit where we're at. Let's kind of move the audit in a direction of where we want to go, and what are the simple steps we can get there. I appreciate that. I think it's a helpful message for a lot of people. I also appreciate your time, and I just want to thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much. I had a great time on the show, and I appreciate it.
All right. Well, we'll stay tuned later. Thank you much. Bye.
Today's episode of Your Best Life was brought to you by True North Quests, helping you discover your calling so you can live a life filled with purpose. Find out more at tnadventures.org, where you can book an appointment with a calling coach, learn about upcoming True North Quest workshops, and more. And by Marble Mountain Kennels, where exceptional Labrador retrievers are bred and trained for adventure, companionship, and service. Visit mmkennels.com to meet your new best canine friend. Thank you for joining us today. Until next time, remember your best life starts with knowing your calling and finding your true north.